hold on. Just somewhere. Okay, we may. That's all.
So, Chair, I wanted clarity. I was under the reason I didn't exhaust my minutes. I under the understanding that we were just engaging the AG on clarity seeking questions, but I see now we're also engaged in the department. So, will we also engage in the department, or did I have a misunderstanding? I still have a minute left to ask DDG Nova.
Yeah, and I can take your minute.
Take my minute, okay.
Let's speak the Honorable Khalid and.
Excuse Honorable Khakhau. So the DDG, so sitters are your baby, I get.
Yeah, my entities, my phone.
Yes. So the AG has explained then what their identification of the problem as far as the root causes of a lack of accountability in the SETA space are. And 3, I want to jog your memory because there was a lapse in the conversation. 3 particular points that the AG makes reference to is that 1, there are no SLAs that have been conducted between the department and the. I really want to take this opportunity to continue with my sentiments. Service SLAs were not concluded. So that's 1. Number 2, your performance indicators, their performance indicators are not well defined and they're not verifiable. And that number 3, their performance outcomes or outputs are not appropriate. So this shouldn't be information that is new to your ears, particularly given the years that you've been responsible for CETAs. So I want to understand from your side point of view, what have you done to ensure that as far as the direct part of accounting before it gets to the DG and before it gets to the minister, what have you done to make sure that you're able to track the outcomes, that you're able to check the indicators of performance, and that most importantly, you're able to action service SLAs?
Thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Khakhau, and I must really appreciate this opportunity once again. So I must make a point that we have done things a bit different this time around. The AG was mentioning the issue of the service level agreements, which is a compliance issue in terms of the Skills Development Act. We know that the processes of the tabling and retabling of the budget were not like as if you compare with other financial years. So there were extensions of resubmissions of the APP strategic plans. So obviously that has had implication with regard to the work of the service level agreements. I must emphasize the point, and maybe that the AG also alluded to. What we have done, what is in the service level agreement, it is in the APP. So as we implement the APPs, we're also required to report on a quarterly basis in terms of the PFMA. You report both financials and non-financials in terms of your performance areas. So that is already now part of the
Chairperson, if I may,
APPs.
I'm sorry, Kata Hanong, but you're not answering my question. The bottom line here is there are no SLAs. You haven't actioned them in order for you to give steering on what it is that CETAs are supposed to. So your answer, my questions are very clear. So what have you? Okay, let's first start here. Why have you not in the past had SLAs available? Why?
Never in the past. We always would have SLAs.
Okay.
Not a single year would not have a SLA.
Okay.
Yes.
So wait, hold on. So you're saying never in the past did you have SLAs, or never in the past did you not have SLAs?
We always have SLAs.
Okay, so what changed according to the AG's report? What changed?
No, there's nothing changed, Honorable Khakhau.
My surname is Khakhau.
The only issue here.
Honorable Mbalo, let's stop there first.
Khakhau.
My surname. Can I just conclude this one point? So, and firstly, and this is the 15th time I'm asking you respectfully to honor my surname the way I honor yours. So the reason I'm asking you to explain is if you're saying that it is not true that there are no SLAs between the department and the SETAs, are you saying the AG is lying?
Honorable Khakhau, please go back to your question. You were saying in the past we resolved and we settled it. To say at no point there were no service level agreements. The only issue now is that we're waiting for retabling of the APPs and the strategic plans. The SLAs are already there. We're processing them. They can be finalized within no time from now. So they are there now because we had to wait for a retabling of the APPs as well as the strategic plans. Because you can't do them before, you do them thereafter.
Yeah,
Thanks very
DDG,
much, Honorable Chair.
No, DDG, let me protect Honorable Khakhau from yourself, but also protect you from yourself. At the beginning of the 7th administration, maybe let me start by saying it's true that SLAs have always been signed, but at the beginning of the 7th administration, you in the department wrote to SETAs, informed them to change some of the APPs or the targets, or to prioritize certain things. And they gave you the updated APPs, which you did not sign. And this is where the issue of the SLA is coming from. Now, knowing that we know this background, answer the question of Honorable Khakhau. Because the question is, what happened then? Why did you, as the department, make the SETAs to change these targets and you not sign the SLAs? In other words, what Honorable Khakhau is saying to you is that as we speak, whilst the AG is auditing, there will be findings on what the SETAs would have spent money on, and you guys will not have signed. So there's an original APP that was submitted to us. Then you guys in the department, around July, August, at the beginning of the 7th administration, you would have said, these are the new, what do you call it, the target. These are the new things that we want to do in the 7th administration. SETA A, go do X, Y, and Z, moving away from the APP. So these people have spent money on what was not in the original APP, based on the letters that we wrote to them. And you guys have not signed that SLA. This is where she comes from. Now, knowing that we have this background, answer her question. Because saying, no, there was never this and that, it's not there. We know, you and I, we know it's there. Now, answer that question, DDG.
Honorable Chairperson, the point that I'm making, the SETA can only spend what is in the APP. The service level agreement is another instrument that we are using to monitor the SETAs. So there is no way that, there will be, let's say, a learning program which is seated in the service level agreement and not in the APP. So implying then, therefore, that everything that we have done a communication to the SETAs recently through the office of the CFO, whereby we said to all of them, please amend your APPs. If your service level agreement is not compliant with the APP, please do the amendment. And about 12 SETAs have done amendment, so it's part of the retabling which has been done now. So that is why the process of finalizing the service level agreement, we waited for this to retable and then thereafter to finalize the service level agreements. But I can confirm, Chair, there is no way that the SETA can implement something that is not in the APP because it is in the service level agreement. There is no
So
way.
you're saying to us,
Indeed, there
will be no audit finding when we deal with the audits later on in the year, that will suggest that the letters that you wrote to the CTAs at the beginning of the 7th administration would have had impact on the performance or on the spending. That's what you are putting your head on the block, say.
Well, Chairman, on the issue of the audit, well, I won't vouch because I'm not sure which areas the AG will be auditing.
No, I'm talking about the audits with the SLA and this APP. So you're saying to me, there is no way, I mean, we're going to interact with these CEOs, these CTAs. They will come and say, yeah, we've spent money on a chalkboard. Because the SLA that came from the department would have indicated, or no, not the SLA, the letter would have indicated X, Y, and Z. So you're saying to me, that will never happen.
A chair that would have been ultra vires. You, all entities, chair, they know you implement what is in the APP. So if one entity, let's say, implements something outside of the APP, then they will have to take full accountability of that. Because the APP goes with the budget, and the service level agreement is embedded in the APP. So you can't, then therefore, on the premise of a draft service level agreement, you implement. You must implement when everything is in the APP and when it's budgeted. You can't.
So you are saying, I'll give you, so you are saying to us, what you've just said about the 12 sitters who have responded, the SLA, because you are saying you've asked them to amend the APP, because the SLA that you want to sign with them was not in line with the APP. That's what you want them to amend.
Chair, what we have said to them, in your APP, make sure what is in the service level agreement is in the APP. Because the APP is the instrument which is budgeted, we are going to implement.
Then why not
and we are
change
going
the
to
SLA?
monitor.
Why not change the SLA if the APP is the baseline? Why are you asking them to align the APP to the SLA and not the SLA to the APP?
Well, Chair, I would wish you get the letter we communicated. Because in the letter we say, if what is in the service level agreement is not in the APP, then you must do amendment. And mind you, before...
Do amendment to what?
It's before, Chair...
No, do amendment to what?
To align.
Yeah, amendment where? SLA or APP?
If a Chair, there is something in the SLA, because we said to them, if you have something, let's say in the SLA you're saying you will offer 50 bursaries. And then in the APP, you said you'll offer 20 bursaries. So it means now then, therefore, the SLA must be amended to comply with the APP, not the reverse.
Okay. Yeah.
On a point of order, Chairperson, I think, look, Ntateno Mbalo is wapala tiketo karon, and he's not really addressing the problem that is here. Now, one, the point was very clear. He must be able to be honest. He can't be saying that the APPs are what the department are using to judge the work of the SETAs, when the Auditor General itself says that the performance indicators that are found within that supposed to be found within the APP are not well defined and they can't be verified, number one. Number two, that the performance outcomes or outputs of the same SETAs are not appropriate. So in simple English, there is a misalignment. I want to read here because, wow, there's a misalignment that undermines the credibility and usefulness of the performance data that you're supposed to receive from the SETAs, making it difficult to assess the outcomes altogether. So the point still remains, where now before you get to DG, you yourself as the DDG responsible for SETAs, how do you assess the SETAs and their performance when the AG tells us that your assessment pool is compromised because you can't assess them if the performance indicators are not well defined and they're not verifiable?
Chair, we have a long process that we do undertake with the SETAs. It does not start just towards the end of the financial or the beginning of the new financial year. That process starts a long time ago, let's say we start ordinarily in July the preceding year, whereby the sitters will be doing submissions of their APPs as well as their strategic plans and their service level agreements. So in that process, we say to them, these are the targets. These targets, they must be in the APP. And these targets must be in the service level agreement. So by the time come the financial year, everything is aligned. So the only difficult way this time around was that because we had to have not one budget, and we had to do revisions of the APPs as well as strategic plans. So that was the only difference now, this time around. Hence, then the AG looked into these areas, and we worked on these areas, and we've done a resubmission with regard to these areas.
Yeah, we don't agree. There's need to leave. So maybe let me give you Honorable Van der Walt, because I know you have to leave. Yeah, I'll still come to you. Yes, Honorable Van der
Okay,
Walt.
thank you for that. I just have a question regards to, and it might not be specifically highlighted in the presentation, is the issue of SIUs. Because we have seen in the past, and it always comes very late after the AG's audits are done, but surely there must be in some way a connection or a proactive steps that can be taken, because I mean, in all honesty, the Nexus report with that SIU, the latest that the president signed up until March this year, it's really millions and millions and millions of rands. The department ends up owing the SIU money. We don't recover all those million rands. How, or is there a plan, or what actions are there between the AG's office and this to get the millions rather be spent on skills development or students rather than putting it in file 13? Because it's a lot of money that goes through this. Is there any methods that we can stop the department? I'm just keen on that, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm going to make an example of the NSF, right, so that you can appreciate how the SIU came into the picture. Right? So we've done work in NSF, I think, for about 2 years or so, and we issued a disclaimer of opinion. We basically said that we as the AGSA cannot express a view on where the money would have been deployed because of the lack of the supporting documentation, right? If you take that as an example, it will be difficult for anybody, and I'm not speaking for the AGSA, because the AGSA mandate is very clear. We are the external auditors of government. And to make sure that we don't become a referee and a player, the AGSA should not be involved in the administration of the department in any how. We can indicate to you that based on the work that we've done last year, if you don't fix this particular internal control exposure points, they're going to cause a problem for you. But we can't sort of interdict the department from doing what they're supposed to be doing. But how the SIU complements some of the work that we do in NSF, that particular, I think it was a 1920 report and 1890, right? So when we express that view, and remember the disclaimer is actually not an opinion. The disclaimer is where the Auditor General says I can associate myself with the work that you've done, right? The SIU then came into the picture because you remember that process went right up until SCOPA, and SCOPA demanded that there be an investigation and SIU be brought into the space, and they ventilated. When the SIU then took over that particular space and kind of ventilate a bit, you remember that there was an investigator, I think it was a Nexus that did a bit of an investigation. It then became clear that the money was not deployed where it was supposed to be deployed. And I'm raising this because many a times, Chair, when the AG come in and say, I was not given a supporting documentation, it may look like an administrative process. It may look like on face value, it looks like it was just an audit document that was not given to the AG. But our experience had told us that where we are not given documents, there's normally bigger problems. And knowing the scope of the Auditor General and the mandate of the Auditor General, entities know that the Auditor General by law can only say that I disclaim and issue an opinion and walk off, by law. What we normally then rely on becomes Parliament. This committee, SCOPA, where you then say, okay, now that you did not give AG the documents, what do we want to do? Because as Parliament, you then do not have a feedback from an independent external auditor of government of how the money would have been utilized. Sometimes we miss it as Parliament, that the lack of supporting documentation become exactly that on a superficial level. Sometimes we get it. And when we do get it, that's where you see the SIU coming in. And when the SIU come in, then they have a mandate to investigate. When they investigate, then you get a proper picture. Right. So it may not be as you want, Honorable Member, in terms of stopping, but it does complement the role of audit. And normally when we come to Parliament and we are having a finding, we try to emphasize that please don't look at this finding just on a superficial level, because the entities many a times may make you believe that it's really just AG not happy with a certain invoice that I've given them. But if I use NSF as an example, in that particular period, what we were not given was actually sitting on the backdrop of where money was misplaced. So I guess I may not be answering in terms of how do you stop the entities, but you may not be able to stop for the first year, but you are able to stop in the years to come. If you bring in the investigating bodies on time, you'll miss 1 year, but you'll not continue to miss 2 years, 3 years down the line. Because if you then do not bring the investigation early enough, or sometimes the entities launch their own investigation and we're not that close to make sure that we cap the period, then we're going to lose as government. Not only 1 year, we'll lose 2 years and 3 years. Sometimes we'll lose the whole administration. Thank you, Chair.